I'm happy. Now I'm sad. Hello Internet, this is Olin from What I'm Listening To. Hope you all are continuing to stay safe, stay healthy, keeping those hands nice and clean, and you are wearing that mask when you go outside. It is currently November 13th, 2020, and we are here to do yet another edition of New Editions, the show where I talk about the new additions I'm adding to my collection. It hasn't been that long since I filmed another New Editions video. In fact, I just uploaded the November 4th New Editions video today, so you can go check that out if you haven't already. But we're not talking about that one. We're gonna talk about this one. We've got some new things we're gonna talk about today, so let's dive right into them. And we're gonna start things off with 3 albums. I have 3 albums by Emma Ruth Rundle. Now, in that last New Editions video, I gushed about Emma and her music and how I slept on it for the longest time, and now I'm just obsessed with her work. And I also said that I would buy more of her music, and well, here we are. Going through these one by one here, this album is called, it's called Some Heavy Ocean. This album, I believe, is her second album in her main solo discography. The first album she put out, I don't think was on a label. I think it was released independently. But I want to say this is her label debut. But I have not heard a single thing off this. But considering that I loved the 2 albums that came after this, I'm sure I will love this one. And then these 2 albums are actually a band she formed called Marriages. These 2 I've actually had on my radar for a while now, and this one in particular I had listened to before, but at the time I heard it, I wasn't quite into it. I think I was just expecting something a little more heavy, and instead I got something a little more shoegazy and dream poppy. But since I got into Emma's solo work, I decided let's give it another chance. So I bought this one, which is their debut album, and then this one, which is their debut EP. Yeah, I'm really excited to have these in my collection. If you haven't listened to any of Emma's music, do yourself a favor, go check her out. She is excellent. The next album I have for you today, I have King Woman's album, the name I don't know, Created in the Image of the Suffering. King Woman is yet another project that's been on my radar for a while, but I have not actually listened to them. What I do know about them is they mix shoegaze with doom metal. I guess you could call it doomgaze. And I also know about them because of my friend Ben, who has conveniently introduced me to groups like Chelsea Wolfe and Emma Ruth Rundle. When it comes to heavy atmospheric music, I always think about him, and so this album I will be listening to with him in mind. I'm excited to check this one out. Staying on the topic of heavy music, the next album I have for you today, I have the Russian Circles Geneva. Russian Circles just might be the first post-metal band I ever listened to. I saw them perform live when they opened for Between the Buried and Me and Coheed and Cambria to an audience that was so sparsely attended. After their set, I immediately went to their merch booth to buy something of theirs. And I didn't know which album of theirs to pick, because I think they had 3 of them available, this one included. But I ended up getting a copy of their album Empros, which is a fantastic album. But I still went home to check out some of their other material on YouTube, and I found that the title track from this CD, Geneva, is one of my favorite Russian Circle songs. This is a CD I've been wanting to get a copy of for the longest time, and Amoeba San Francisco finally had a copy in stock, so I snatched it. So this one has been a long time coming, and I'm so thrilled to finally add it to the collection. If you want some good post-metal music, then you should absolutely check these guys out. They are great. Still on the topic of heavy music, the next album I have for you today, I have Daughters, You Won't Get What You Want. Okay, so I know some of you are probably going to think I'm a bit of a hypocrite for getting this album. I believe it was my Rare and Hard to Find CDs video volume 2. I talked about the album before this and how I really wanted to like this album and I just couldn't. Since it's been released, it's gotten so much hype, and for whatever reason, I just couldn't get into it until now. I recently went back and listened to samples of a couple of the songs off of this and thought, okay, I'm liking this. I'm not loving it, but I'm definitely not hating it. So I decided, just buy the album, listen to it all the way through, maybe you'll end up loving it. But really, I bought it because I wanted to hear some good noise rock, and so, like I said, I'm gonna sit down with it, listen to it a couple times, and see where it takes me. Okay, doing a complete 180 from noise rock and heavy music. The next CD I have for you today, I have the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magik. I've known about this album forever, and it's considered a classic. I got into it through reading Anthony Kiedis' book Scar Tissue, which is an amazing read. No matter what you think about the band, whether you love them, you hate them, you should absolutely read that book. It's so good. And this album I was curious about because I'd heard a lot of great things about it. I was familiar with the songs Suck My Kiss, Give It Away, and Under the Bridge, but really nothing else. So I bought a digital copy of it just to try to see what the hubbub was about. And my initial thought was I wasn't big on it. I really wasn't a fan of the funk material the band was doing. I liked the standard alternative stuff. But I ended up keeping at it, and the more I read the Scar Tissue book, the more I started to get more curious about the band. So I would listen to this album on and off, and it just reached a point where I could get into the funk. And my all-time favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers song is on here, which is Naked in the Rain. And talk about funk, that bass line on there is insanely funky, and the melody and the hook is just so good. And it took me up until now to finally get a copy of this CD. After listening to a digital copy of it for years now, I finally bought myself a proper CD copy. In fact, it's perfect because it's raining right now, so maybe I'll strip down naked and go take a run outside. The next CD I have for you today, I have Paul Westerberg's 14 songs. I absolutely adore The Replacements, and I love Paul Westerberg as a songwriter. But like a lot of other people, I kind of fell off The Replacements after the Pleased to Meet Me era, back when they were starting to stray away from heavier sounding rock and more into intimate pop rock sounding material. And I initially wrote this album off because I thought it was just generic alternative rock. I didn't think it hit as hard as the Replacements material did, so I listened to this and then just forgot about it. But then I recently re-listened to the song First Glimmer and fell in love with it. That song has since been on repeat for me over the last few days, so I had to get this album again. It was only $1.99, which is even better. I think after I'm done with this album, I'm gonna go re-listen to the last two Replacements records because they get so much shit. I'm not surprised because it's very different sounding from their earlier work. But now that I can appreciate the poppy stuff that he's doing on here, I think I can appreciate the later material the Replacements did.
You was my first glimmer of light.
Okay, the next album I have for you today, this is a new release. I have Foothills by the Bats. It might upset a couple people when I say this, but I've actually never listened to the Bats until now. The only reason I bought this album is because it was playing at Amoeba during my last trip there, and I was really into it. And maybe it's because I'm just super into that Paul Westerberg album, but this just sounded like really nice, easygoing, catchy alternative rock. I found myself Shazamming what was being played several times while shopping, and finally I decided I'm just gonna buy this album. The little promo sticker says, "The Bats are back with their 10th full-length release. Spanning nearly 4 decades, the band has created twisted, wistful folk, psychedelic rock, bouncy pop, and everything in between. But whatever the genre, their sound is always distinctively, unmistakably the Bats." So yeah, I'm excited to dive into this CD. We'll see if this makes me go and buy more of their material. Moving on, we've talked about heavy music, we've talked about alternative rock. Now let's go into some experimental music. The next album I have for you today, I have Quarantine by Laurel Halo. This musician I've known about for a long time. At one point I was in the market for some of her music, but I kind of just forgot about her just because I didn't find anything. That wasn't until now, where I found this album at Amoeba with an employee recommendation sticker on it, which I'm always happy to see. And for $9.99, I decided to grab it. One of the things I love about this album is the artwork. It's just so twisted and demented looking. And from what I've heard from sampling this CD, the music is equally as twisted. Warbled vocals, weird electronics that are also very atmospheric. This should be a great listen. I'm very happy I found a copy of this at Amoeba, and I'm very excited to experience it.
So I have to forget about the love and to run. Caught behind a wall of tears, distorted, image of you.
The next album I have for you today, I have this lovely compilation by the band Maine. Maine is an experimental project that was formed by 2 of the former members of the band Loop. I actually found out about these guys from an experimental compilation with a name I can't pronounce, but I'll put the cover here in front. Finding out that the 2 were actually related to one another was kind of interesting. They incorporate the spacey elements that they did in Loop, but it's more so a drone ambient project rather than a space rock project. And this particular guy is a 2-disc compilation just chock full of material. This is not really in the best of condition. It's kind of falling apart here, but whatever. I might need to glue this CD case back on, but I'll listen to this first before I try to fix this. Next up, I have a Loscil record. I have Coast Range Arc. Yet another person who has been on my radar for ages, but I've never actually listened to their material. Loscil is one of the many wonderful projects that are involved with Cranky. As some of you already know, I love Cranky Records. Cranky is probably my all-time favorite label. I have so much of their releases, and I would argue that it's responsible for getting me into a lot of experimental music. And this particular release is actually a reissue. I think it initially came out about 10 years ago, and the original issue is a very rare CD to get. So I'm thankful that the wonderful people at Cranky decided to reissue and remaster this album, making it easy to obtain. Like I said, I've never actually listened to anything by Loscil, but I'm gonna consider this my formal introduction to the project, and if I find any more material by them, I'm definitely probably gonna buy it. And the last CD I have for you today, I have the brand new album by William Basinski. I was not expecting this album to come out, but here we are. I love William's music. The Disintegration Loop's easily one of the best drone ambient albums around, and his album Melancholia is equally as good. Some of the best ambient music I've ever heard. This one, I have no idea what to expect, but honestly, everything I've heard by William, I've really enjoyed. And this was released by Temporary Residence, who has also put out a lot of William's music. I think I want to open up this one too on the video because I kept it in the plastic wrap. I imagine this is probably going to be just as minimal as William's music tends to be. What we have inside, more art, nice kind of gloomy looking painting, tape loops and studies from the archive 1979 to 2020, digitized and recorded in Los Angeles, dedicated to my brother David Irwin. Interesting, very interesting. Don't think there's a booklet. Nope, just, oh, well, hang on. Oh yes, the iconic Temporary Residence thank you postcard that they always put in, as well as a list of a bunch of other stuff that the label has put out. Yeah, I'm very excited to listen to this. I'm sure this will be an amazing thing to experience. Alright, Internet, that does it for me. Hey, if you have any new additions you've added to your collection, let me know. Leave a comment down below. I'll check them out. If you also like this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It'll show me the support, and I'll love your face for it. And you can also follow me on Instagram for even more music. I post a new album on there semi-frequently, talk a little bit about it, and it gives you a bit of an insight of what else is in my collection. So, thank you all so very much for watching. This is Olin from What I'm Listening To, signing out. Goodbye.
No offense, but you ain't strong enough to hold me back for long enough. Our mamas don't even want to get along with us, singing church songs and saying something's wrong with us. Pharmacists and doctors all checking their thermometers. You can say I'm back, but you don't even know me like that. You don't know me like that. Broke my hand a couple dozen times.